Hi everyone, this is Chris here from Woodsman Spirit channel. Just had to take a day out to stay at home today because of the thunderstorms we've been having on the other property. So I'm going to do a long promised axe. I'll call it a review, but really it's just a discussion around most of the axes that I've got, the weight of them and the haft length. So for those of you who've got a real axe fetish, I suggest you sit down, breathe deeply, because you're going to be palpitating before we finish today. First and foremost, so I'll start with another thing I promised to do, which was to show you three of the more recent axes that I've built and just let you see what they look like in the finished form. So I'll start with those three guys first. Okay, so here, as many of you have already seen, there's the this is a 3-pound Montreal pattern Hultfuss Brooks, and it's on a 34-inch haft. It started as 36, but I did some modification to the haft, and this is the only hickory haft that I've ever tried to give it a scorched finish on the haft. I mean, it's okay, but quite honestly I prefer the natural coloured hafts with the oil on. But it's it's quite a meaty axe. It's obviously a felling axe. It's in pretty good condition. Well, I would say almost excellent condition, very little abuse to it. 34-inch haft. Works out, I have all the stats written down here. This works out at 34, let me get this right, works out at 4.5 pounds with the haft on. So you've got about a pound of haft with that 34-inch haft. Okay, the other one, which again you've probably seen, this is the Seta Banco. So this is going down in size a little bit. So the Seta is on a 28-inch haft. I mean, again, originally it started as a 30, but through modification it came down to 28, and that works out at 3.5 pounds with the haft. So that works out a pound less than the Montreal, and quite honestly, whether it's to do with the edge that came on the axe and the work I've done on it, the Seta Banco probably cuts as well as the HB. I think one of the reasons as well is that it's got a very slim profile, like a zero grind, and quite a thick pole. So it's in a sense it's wedged, but the blade is quite, as you can see, it goes quite convex from back to front. Whereas with the big Hultz, it's I mean, it did have a natural convexing on the edge. I've taken the convexing slightly more shallower, and it does cut well, but I don't think it cuts at this moment in time much different to the Seta. And the other one, which was what I would call one of my experimental axes, which I've made a few videos so far on in terms of hafting and saying how I'd only paid a small amount of money for this. I think in total it probably came to I don't know, 15, less than 20 bucks to make this axe up. But I wanted to build something that was slightly on the top edge of what people would consider to be a backpacking all year round camp axe. I chose this 2.5 pound HB, again Montreal pattern, so it's like the baby brother of the big 3.5 there. And what I did was I wanted to put it on as short an haft as I thought would be useful, but at the same time not too long so that it becomes cumbersome. So this one ended up with at 3 pounds in weight, so it's works out £1.5 less in weight than its big brother, and it's on a 27-inch haft. Again, I think the haft was close on 30 inches when I started. I took some off the top and I certainly slimmed it down a lot, so I made it to be a very strong axe. So it has a fair bit of wood left around the head there. Although once we come away from the head, and this is one of the reasons I made it like this is that if it gets rough usage and it gets chunks knocked out of it, it's not going to let me down. I mean, quite honestly, I'm fairly good at using an axe, so I'm not likely to abuse it. But if, let's say for instance, you're in a desperate situation and you was using it roughly, you could rely on there being quite a lot of wood left in the haft. On the other hand, I've tapered the haft down so that I can close my fingers around it, and you can see it gradually thickens towards the top. So I've used it a little bit for limbing so far, but I've not really exhaustively tested it. Probably won't cut as good as the Satyr, but there again the Satyr is that bit heavier. Okay, let's go on to the next level of craziness here. So what I've done today is I've taken out most of my axes. Well, that's probably about half actually, but what I've done is I've arranged them in an order of weight. And the weights I'm going to quote you are weights including the haft, because I don't see much point in talking about the weight of an axe just based on the head, because if you're backpacking and you're weight conscious, then clearly you're going to be very interested in the overall weight. So I'm just going to have to refer to some figures that I've made here, otherwise I'll never remember it all. Now for the first one, which some of you may have seen and some of you may not, is this Rosselli, and I've had this probably about 10 years. I was very interested in this, what might be called a packable bushcraft axe. It's the guy Haimo Rosselli who forges these in Finland. He is a guy who likes to do things his own way, and in a way he can get away with it because he is a master blacksmith for sure. And he also makes some phenomenal knives, which I'm not going to talk about today. But the key factor of this axe is it's a very thick wedge. Now the specification on this is, if I can look down, it's an 850 gram head, which on the haft only weighs 1.5 pounds. So that, as most people would say, is to the lower end of a bushcraft weight of a bushcraft axe. Most people would be looking at over 2 pounds for a bushcraft axe. And the haft length on it is 18 inch, so again it's 18 to 24 is a typical length for what most people would like as a bushcraft axe. The only thing I would say about this is, there's been a lot of criticism of it, a lot of people don't like it, but I think one of the problems is you've got to learn how to use it. And like with most things that Haimo Rosselli makes, you've got to know what the guy's thinking when he's making these axes. Well, it's a convex, very thick wedge and the convex grind, so it's okay. It's ideally suited for holding, choking up under the head, and it does carve well, I can tell you that. And it is extremely sharp, despite having this huge, thick profile on it. The wonderful thing about it, even though it's 1.5 pounds, it splits way beyond its weight, as you would expect. And it's also got that nice feature of a collar on there, which strengthens axes under use. The haft is, again, is 18 inch of birch, which in my experience works pretty much as good as any other wood. So I'll move on to the next haft here, which is much more familiar to most people. It's the, I've had this probably, I don't know, 15-20 years. This is the S.A. Wetterling small hunter's axe. I bought this when I lived in the UK. This is one with a rounded flay pole, and again this one is works out at, I can find my figures here, 1.75 pounds, so it's a quarter of a pound heavier than the Rosselli, and it has an 1.5 inch longer haft. So again, you know, length to weight ratio, it's probably on par with the Rosselli. The big difference, of course, is it's got a slimmer profile, not as slim as the Gramforce Brooks small forest axe. What I prefer about this over the Gransfors though is and you find this on a number of the S.A. Wetterling's axes, is the slightly downturned cutting edge. I find this very good for biting into wood. This axe is a good woodcraft axe. It chops above its weight. You can do finer tasks with it. You can choke up under the beard in the head there. My only major criticism with it was, and I'll say was, the thickness of the haft. It was way too thick this way, thicker than even the biggest axes I've got, and that's a common criticism people have for a lot of mass-produced axes nowadays. It's very good steel. It's razor sharp edge on it, which I always buff, and I have taken off about 1/4 inch down most of the haft up to about here. I've also taken the sharp edge off that was just under there. So yeah, this is a good, easy to use, all round backpackable axe. So I'll move on to what is probably one of my favourites. This is the Les Stroud so-called Wetterling's Bushman axe. I've had this for a few years. I've used it a lot for limbing branches off smaller trees, you know, trees up to spruce up to 60 feet. It also splits wood extremely well for its size and weight. And I think one of the strengths of this axe is the combination of weight and length. It weighs with haft 2 pounds, so and that's on a 22-inch haft, which is again longer than the S.A. Wetterling small forests and longer than the for sure than the Rosselli. So longer than the typical haft you would find on a axe of this shape. It's a very good all-round axe. It's got quite a flat grind on it, which is good for squaring down logs and making joints in logs to build a shelter. Quite a useful hammer pole on there. It feels very much like a tomahawk, but it's in reality it's a full-blown axe, and of course you can choke up under the head there. Moving on to another popular axe that's available today, and that is the Hultfors Brooks Classic. So again, we're going up in weight a little bit here. So this one with haft weighs 2.5 pounds, and again it's on a slightly shorter handle, which is a popular bushcraft length, 20 inches. So that's 2.5 pounds. For some people it's about the limit of what they want to carry. It's heavy enough to cut down small trees. It will, as many people have talked about on YouTube, it will perform impeccably with bushcraft tasks, and the build quality on it is exceptionally good. The fit and finish is very good. Slightly convex edge, which I don't have a problem with. Stays sharp, and I do tend to prefer the Wetterling, but again, I'm not saying it's a better axe than the Classic, maybe not. But I just think the Bushman is a slightly more versatile axe. Now I'm going to move on to something slightly different here. This is the first bushcraft axe I built, based on a Holtzbrook 0.7 kilo, which is 1.5 pound Haft head. Sorry, I'm just going to try and get you the specs on that. Just bear with me on this. Yeah, so this works out at slightly over £2. 20-inch haft, fairly slim profile on the blade. It works extremely well as a bushcraft axe. I wouldn't use it as a as a tree falling axe, although it will cut a tree down. But I think it's just a bit on the light side, even though it's very sharp. I'm cautious with axes. So here we are moving up to the Toposib Boba Siberian built axe made in the taiga forest. Pretty traditional design. The specification on this is 2 3/4 pounds including haft on a 25-inch length haft. So it's a nice long haft. It's a total wood destroyer, this axe. It's very good at flattening. So now I'm just about done talking about the smaller packable axes that most people will feel comfortable carrying. That is, axes up to with the aft probably 2 1/4, 2.5 pounds max. So I'm going to move on to something different now. This is and some of you may have seen the review on this, is the Toposib Boba, made in the Tiger Axe Works in Siberia. This axe is what most people would consider probably slightly too heavy for a packable axe, but nevertheless I would call it a good winter axe. So this is 2 3/4 pounds including haft on a 25-inch haft, which is a beechwood haft, which I've mentioned in my video review. This thing is a total destroyer of wood, so I would be happy to carry something like this because I know it will do more than many of the smaller axes, although maybe not with the same dexterity, but you could still, and I've tried it, you can still plane down wood, shave wood with this, and it will flatten out surfaces of logs very well to make tables and things like that in the bush, or to construct small shelters and whatever. But the bite on this is something quite brutal, which is probably why they call it boba, which is Russian for beaver. Again, on this one I slimmed the haft down. It was very club-like, as was the haft on this small Wetterling, so I've taken the liberty to slim it down, and it's vastly superior. So now I'm going to move on to another axe that I built a few years ago. This is a SA Wetterling's EX model, which is a high quality steel, and this works out at £3 on a 25-inch haft. So most people would call this a good winter stroke camp axe. Good all-round axe, as most people know Wetterlings are. Similarly with this, similar size, maybe an inch longer haft. I've got the HB that I built a few years ago, and this is 2 years ago I think I built this. An inch longer haft, so this is on a 26 as opposed to a 25, but they're both 2 1/4 pound axes, good all round axes. Probably not the greatest thing for fine work, but you know, for a lot of tasks they're a very good axe. So yeah, that one weighs in at 3¼ pounds. So now I'm going to move on to 3 oddball axes for most people. These are the Billnas, which some of you will have seen me enthusing about in the past. So the first one is an axe that I really do have a lot of respect for, and that is the Billnas 12.3. And Billnas 12.3 is, again, I would say it almost fits into the category of a winter axe or a limbing axe. So it's a heavier axe capable of bushcraft, somewhat similar design to the other Scandinavian axes like the Wesselings and HB, but nevertheless I like it because it's, well, for one thing, I built it so the haft is custom to my needs, and it's as you've seen before, it's a fairly thick wedge, so it will split extremely good, and because of the relatively shallow edge, slightly shallower than on the HB for example, it penetrates wood extremely well. It's on a fairly short haft. It's on a 24-inch haft, which was pretty typical, so it feels quite heavy for the length of haft, but because of the Finnish shaped haft, it will work quite well as a small falling axe, as well as extremely well for, as I've demonstrated in a previous video, limbing a large spruce. Now this is the Billnas 1133, one of the last Billnases made. Again, on this one it turns out 2¾ pounds, so a bit lighter than the 12.3, quite packable. 22-inch birch haft that I custom made. Again, fairly thick wedge, so it's a good camp splitting axe. Fairly, I've levelled out the grind on it a little bit. It's very sharp, but it will. You can do wood crafting with it. I've not used it a lot for wood crafting, but I use it now. I've used it as on occasion for a limbing axe, which it's fairly good at. It's also good for splitting small rounds for campfires, so quite a useful axe. And we'll move on to the final one. If you still, you guys, heads aren't spinning. This is the beast. I mean, this thing is a total animal of an axe. This is a bit of an anomaly, as I've said on previous videos. I don't know what model Billnas it is. It's a 12 something, and even though it's on a 24-inch haft, and I designed this to be a close quarters falling axe, and it certainly bites the wood pretty darn good. It's a destroyer of wood for sure. It splits well because you can see it's got quite the wedge on it, but it's also got quite a long grind, razor sharp grind on it. It weighs in a hefty 4 pounds though, so it's when I call it a beast, that's what it is. It's you're not going to it's not going to be everyday choice for a bushcraft axe, but it's, in terms of splitting and felling trees, it's, for its size, it's very capable. So again, that is it's only ½ pound less than the big Montreal 3½ pound axe, so, and it weighs in probably it weighs in ½ pound less than the Seta Banco, sorry, ½ pound more than the Seta Banco, and £1.5 more than the 2½ pound Montreal. So it's not an everyday carrying axe, but it's fun. It's interesting to experiment with. So I'm hoping that this somewhat long 2 videos has been useful. The point I'm trying to make here is, you know, this range of 5 smaller axes here. These are the typical size that people like to put in a pack. They're capable of doing a bit of most of everything, except with the Riselli. I wouldn't call that a falling axe. But I certainly wouldn't recommend taking on falling trees bigger than 4-inch diameter with the rest of them. Then you're moving on to the other axes, like from the Topolsib up. These are more like winter axes, although I do carry these with me all year round, and I find that's usually a good choice because I can cut trees down with less effort. Similarly with the 12-3, 11-33, need to use that more because I haven't really gotten used to that, and this is just an anomaly. So thanks for persevering today, and I hope this is useful. I look forward to hearing what people's comments are about these axes, and but I do actually have more axes I'm not reviewing yet, but I look forward to hearing your guys what you guys think about packable axes and usable axes for bushcraft and woodsmanship. So please like, subscribe, and welcome your comments, and I have a bunch more videos coming up in the next couple of days. Thank you.